Very much. So our seventh tradition states that every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We will now pass the basket. This is a weekly literature or step meeting, actually. Our format is as follows. A speaker is asked to talk for no longer than 30 minutes. He or she spends 15 minutes on qualifying themselves and the other 15 minutes on either the composition from the big book or the step of that week. This is followed by group shares, discussions, or questions up until 7 p.m. We then end the meeting with either the Lord's Prayer or the Serenity Prayer, and that's going to be our speaker's choice tonight. So you can find our past weekly meetings on our YouTube page called Stay Alive Literature and Group Meeting. You can also find information about our upcoming meetings and other great stuff at the Doylestown Recovery Group Facebook page. Do not forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. This brings us to the speaker portion of our meeting on this day of May 19, 2025 in Doylestown, PA, at the Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group Meeting at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Thomas, and he is sharing his experience and speaking on Step 6. Let's welcome Thomas.
Like Gary said, I'm an alcoholic and my name's Thomas. So step 6, I never spoke before like this. I'm used to going to the detox and speaking to people that are still drooling, so it's like less pressure because they're not paying attention anyway.
Well, they're not paying attention either, so don't worry.
Hopefully. Like last week, you tried to get me here, and I somehow weaseled myself out of that, but you guys got me back.
Okay.
But so step 6 is, if you haven't heard it yet, if you're not there in your recovery yet, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. When I first took that step, it didn't really mean anything to me. I was in my own rehab, and they said, you got to do the steps to get out of here. So I kind of was just like, they're like, oh, are you powerless over alcohol? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I don't know. I ended up here somehow. And then when I got to step 6, I kind of just was like, all right, just get me to step 7 already. I'm trying to get to 8, 9, and 10 and get out of here so I can start drinking again. I tried everything. So I made an outline here because my thoughts are pretty scrambled still. My sobriety date is a little under 3 months ago. It's March 1st. I have a lot more sobriety than that. It's just that I'm a chronic relapser. Hopefully this is my last sober date, and that's what I'm sticking to. I'm from Doylestown originally. My life before AA was very unmanageable. I thought that it was normal, and I thought I was living a normal life. I thought I was actually being productive. It was not at all. I started drinking not as early as some people like to say they started drinking when they were 10. For me, about 16 is when I had my first drink, and immediately I had fallen in love. It was like a solution that I was looking for all my life. And I quickly started abusing it. That first drink, I drank the whole bottle, and I'm a blackout drinker. When I start drinking, I can't stop. I guess that makes me an alcoholic. It wasn't that I started horrible. It's just that I started at night, and it just progressed over the next. I think I kept drinking for about 10 years. I'm 27 soon. And it just got worse and worse. It started drinking in the day, and then I started drinking because if I stopped drinking, I was afraid I was going to die. And then my blackouts stopped being from, 6 o'clock at night to the morning. It started being days at a time, and then it started becoming weeks at a time. And in the end, I blacked out for a full month. That's just the kind of drinker I am. I have little to no control over it once it's in me. I like to think that I have control over it. I like to think back at times where I've successfully had a couple drinks and stopped magically. And my brain, the disease is just very sinister, and it can kind of trick you into thinking that you don't belong here and that, you're not like anyone in here. And that's certainly what happened to me hundreds and hundreds of times. I resented myself out of programs, out of different, whatever they're called, just out of everything. So I guess I'll talk about how much I used and when I used and how I used is probably irrelevant. Everyone has the same exact story. You just used it because it felt good. I mean, that's like the biggest realization that I've had. I didn't feel right, and a lot of the times I felt really bad. And whenever I took a drink, all those feelings went away. The problem is that the drinking brought a lot more consequences with it, and it was not serving me at all. It was actually destroying my life, and it did destroy my life. And it destroyed a lot of people's lives around me. And I start to realize that as more sober I get. Like I said earlier, the bottom that I had was a month-long blackout. And I had a couple, I would just like, and it's not like that blackout was a month long in particular, but for years before that, it was just like me just like kind of like phasing in and out of consciousness. I was using all day, every day, and it was just so unmanageable. It made me do things I didn't think I'd ever do. You know, a lot of people in this room, now that Avenues came over, can probably relate to this. Things are just very easy to get nowadays too with the internet. I mean, they just show up right to your door and you got a month's supply at least. Let's see. Step 6, let's bring it to that. Or should I keep qualifying?
You keep qualifying.
All
Tell your
right.
story.
Yeah, I mean, for example, like I have real dark thoughts. I went into a church a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, something like that. And I went in there and when I'm sitting in church, normal people look happy and they're like kind of like energetic and stuff. I'm just thinking I need to put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger because it's just so, like I cannot sit there and see happy people. Like there's just, I was born with what's called a spiritual malady, I've come to find out. And I am just, selfish, I am judgmental, I'm jealous, like I'm all these things I'll talk about later in the speech or whatever you want to call it. But that's that spiritual malady. It's what makes me an alcoholic. And that's why alcohol works so well for me, because all those things that make me feel horrible end up making me feel good, or at least not horrible. I just wanted to die at like the progression got to a point where I just wanted to die all day, every day. And the only reason I didn't kill myself is because I could just keep using, because that felt good. So, I might as well just keep using until one day I get unlucky, hit by a bus or something else. And then eventually, when I stopped using, I realized the actual strength of this disease was that I thought that when I stopped using that I would get better. When I stopped drinking, I would get better. And actually the opposite happened. I got worse and I got sicker. And the thoughts were just there all day long. So not like when I was suicidal, I'd just take something to make the thoughts go away. But then now that everything's away and I'm stuck in a rehab and I have to be sober, I'm just feeling horrible. Yeah, oh yeah, I'll tell that. Actually, so one day, Ron was saying you have to tell this story. One day I was in rehab, and it was a group where they were talking about honesty and how honesty is going to save your life. So I was like, all right, whatever, I'll try it. It's like rigorous honesty. They love that word, rigorous. So my counselor decides to talk to me that day, and they're like, oh, is there anything like, how are you feeling? And I'm just like, I was honest with her. I was like, I feel horrible. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I mean, I just want to die. And she's like, she just looked at me. I guess she wasn't alcoholic maybe. And she was like, well, what do you mean you want to die? Do you have like a plan of how you do it? And I was like, of course I have a plan. And I told her exactly what I do. Because in my mind, like, it doesn't make sense. Why would I want to die and not have a plan? I know what I'm going to do. And then that was apparently not the right thing to say. I get sent to a mental hospital, and now I'm in the mental hospital, and I got to pretend that, oh, I don't belong here. It's an accident. And then they try to put me on all of these other psych meds. One day they told me I was acting manic, and they gave me this stuff called booty juice, if you've ever had that. It's just a nickname for this medicine. I can't. And it was a sedative, so I was like, yeah, I'll take that. It didn't do much, so I was like, do you got anything stronger? And they're like, sure, take this. And I took it like, I was like, just give it to me. Maybe it'll get me high. I woke up like 48 hours later, and they asked me if I want a 30-day script. I was like, no. I came here not to do the blackouts. I'll start taking that medicine and I'll wake up in 10 years. I do not need that. So I get out of there, I'm back in rehab, and it's just like, it's not that I'm not taking it seriously, it's that I still don't realize what I suffer from, and it's that I don't really know what I'm up against. You know, I'm forced to go to these AA meetings. I sit in the back of the room, I'm not paying attention. Maybe I'm coloring because, of course, I'm artistic all of a sudden. Like, no, I'm not. But I anything to distract me from like somebody up here speaking to the crowd. And that's what I did. And it got me nowhere. It just kept me suicidal, it kept me miserable, and it kept me abusing things. I could never get, this is the longest clean time I've ever had is just under 3 months. I could just never do it. I'm not going to give you ideas of what to do or what I was doing because they're terrible ideas. But I'm sure you have your own terrible ideas if you're still that early in sobriety. But what changed is, you know, I resented myself out of my sober house. I'm like, these people aren't cleaning their dishes enough or something like that. So I moved back here, and this was actually the meeting I stumbled into. And for some reason, I don't know what it was, I just started listening. And I got a good sponsor, and really that helped me a lot because I needed some real direction. And he actually got me doing the steps, which before it was kind of like homework and I had to just get through it, but now it was like more of like a way of life. And I didn't realize like the change that was taking place. I was actually like starting to live by spiritual principles and do things I didn't want to do. You know, dress up in a suit and tie and introduce people. I was so feared up. I was like, oh, I don't want to I don't want to, you know, shake anybody's hand or say hi to anybody. But yeah, that's kind of where I was before AA and when I started getting into it. My experience with the first 5 steps before the 6th step, and then we'll talk about that. I knew I was powerless over drugs and alcohol. I just didn't want to admit it. So that second part of the first step, where it's like you come to terms with it, I just couldn't come to terms with it. So that's why I kept relapsing. So I really suggest when you do the first step, like you read the whole thing, not just the first half, because that kept me sick. I did the steps really like half-butted. I'm not gonna lie. I should probably go over them. Because what I've noticed is the more thoroughly you do this program, the better you feel. Anytime I start, like I had great sobriety, like what I was talking about when I came here for the first meeting, and then I took a job over in Europe, and I stopped working the program. That's the most important thing for me, is working the program. It's not even going to meetings. I tried just going to meetings to stay sober, and it didn't work. If it was just meetings, at least in my experience, I would have been sober like years and years ago. That's just not my experience. I have to do things that I don't want to do, and I have to try and be a better person, because those are the things that make me feel good with myself, where the bad thoughts don't creep in and tell me you need a drink or a drug to feel better. So I guess the 6th step, I have like my outline here. The character defects. So when I asked God to remove, I realized what was happening. I slowly went through this. So I have a list right here of some of the basic ones if you haven't heard the character defects before. Anger, selfishness, dishonesty, fear, pride and ego, resentment, guilt, laziness, self-pity, and jealousy. You know, I think everybody probably has a little bit of every single one of those. You might struggle more with some. I think for me, selfishness was like a huge problem I had ever since I was a little kid. I mean, well, here's a funny story. When I was 10 years old, I wanted my parents to buy me a Roblox account, and they wouldn't. So I was like, all right, I'll go get it myself. and I proceeded to steal like $500,000 worth of people's accounts, and then lost it all because somebody smarter than me stole it all from me. It was an early example of karma, but my selfishness has been just extreme since I was little, and all it did was make me, like, it made me jealous, actually. Like, I was so selfish that I needed everything. Like, I needed all these external things that I thought would make me feel better. I would see like a Lamborghini driving down the thing, and I was like, oh, once I get that, I'll finally be happy. And it's like, oh no, I've blown up a couple things. I've gotten so lucky. I've won the lottery for a lot of money, like hundreds of thousands, and I proceeded to gamble every single cent of that. Like, it's just, if I'm not living by spiritual principles, anything I get in my life, I will take it for granted because I'm ungrateful, and I will lose it like very quickly. And that's happened to me like a number of times where I've caught in a break, and normal people would run with it and they'd have a great life. Every time I catch a break, I just destroy it. Now that I'm working a program, I'm spiritually, I would like to think I'm more spiritually fit. If I do get an opportunity like that, I think I'll be able to run with it thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous. When it says entirely ready, that's just kind of like, are you entirely ready? I had to be beaten down so bad. I think that's kind of why people don't, like Ron says, nobody comes into AA on a winning streak. You kind of come here at your rock bottoms. I don't think anybody's going to actually take this program seriously and take the action necessary unless you've been beaten to a pulp and you just have no other options. And like, some people have to learn it harder than others. I don't really know where I fall in the spectrum of things, but I took as much pain as I possibly could, and that's when I decided to make the decision that I'm just going to do this. I'm going to give it all I have, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to go back out. And I did do that to an extent, and had to learn again, and then again, and here we are again. And just keep doing it. And like, just because I relapsed or anything doesn't mean like that I should give up on AA altogether. I started feeling better, and then I started feeling better, so I was like, all right, I don't need it so much. So I stopped doing it. And then when I stop doing it, I feel worse, and then I relapse. And then you could you can take that two ways. You could be, unproductive, I would say, way of looking at it would say, AA doesn't work, and I'm never going to do this again. I'll drink myself to death. Or you could be like, what did I miss? What did I do wrong? Was I not thorough enough? Was it a coincidence that when I stopped doing the program so much, I relapsed? Maybe. At least that's the conclusion I drew myself to. When specific defects, I kind of went there. How the step 6 changed me. Okay, the growth that took place in my life with step 6, it's like you were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So what I started doing is, if I was, and I'm not perfect, I didn't do this every single time either. If I was really, really angry at someone, the right thing to do, and it's really hard to do it in anger, I understand, is like, God, please remove this anger, or please remove this boredom if I'm sitting in church, or please remove this resentment I have against somebody. Like, driving down the road, somebody cuts you off, or I'm always the person that cut people off, but I get angry at people going slow. So I gotta learn to, ask God to remove these defects of character. I'm impatient. Get rid of that. Doesn't serve me. All it does is get me all selfed up and angry, and then anger just quickly crashes you into something that could lead to a relapse or get you out of the program. Let's see. Are there still character defects I'm working on today? Yes. Who doesn't? It's not like you come into an AA meeting and you're cleansed, like you're perfectly a new person. I don't think that happened for anybody. I still struggle with selfishness. I want to be important. I want to, do all these things, and it'll just come at God's will, not mine. I would love to make $1 million a year. Who wouldn't? But that's might not be God's plan for me, and I have to just be okay with that and stop trying to take things into my own control, because that's what led me to my addiction in the first place. Another one of the breaks I had in life was I dropped out of college, and I was lucky that I knew someone that got me a really good job, and I was making multiple times more money than I should have been at that age. And it wasn't enough because I was ungrateful. And what did I do? I quit, and I tried to make 10x that doing something even stupider. And then I got even more resentful when that didn't work, and I started progressing my disease even further. And that obviously didn't. It's another example of going on self-will, not progressing my life in the direction it should be. And if anything, it was progressing it backwards. How step 6 shows up in my daily life? I mean, yeah, I already said that. I don't know. That might be all I have for you guys. There's like a million things I could say, but when I relate it to step 6, remove all these defects of character, that's probably all I got for you. Right?
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We have a lot of people here tonight, so we'll keep the meeting busy, so thank you. We have come to the part of our meeting where we open up the floor to you for shares, discussions, questions. With this group, try to limit yourself to 3 minutes. Please try and keep your conversation to the literature or this step shared by Thomas. If you feel like drinking or if you have had a drink today, please come see me or speak to someone after the meeting. So we're going to open up the floor for some shares, please. Let's go in the back. Hey, Nate, good.
Hi, Nate.
I definitely relate to like sitting in the back on the